welcome everyone to the Brookline Booksmith Author Event Series. My name is Silas. I'm a member of the events team here at the Booksmith. If you're familiar with our store, welcome back. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. A few housekeeping notes: to put your phones on silent. You can always pick up a book from us at the back desk. If you pre-ordered one or you want to buy one from either our illustrator or our guest illustrators. And there will be time for a Q&A, so get your questions ready. We're here tonight for a special artist launch of Demon in the Wood in partnership with the Massachusetts Independent Comics Expo. And it's my pleasure to introduce our moderators, Braden and Shelli Paroline, and artist Dani Pendergast. Shelli and Braden form an Eisner Award-winning illustrator team collaborating on the Adventure Time comics, Meet Us, One Day a Dot, and Making Sense. Braden is the colorist for several New York Times best-selling books, including Guts and the Babysitter's Club graphic novels, and Shelli is the co-director of the Massachusetts Independent Comics Expo, Boston's premier event for independent comics and graphic novels. And MICE is returning in person this year, very soon. Mm-hmm. Dani Pendergast is a cartoonist and illustrator from Parkland, Florida, with a BFA and MFA from the illustration program at Syracuse University. She's done work for Apple, Boom Studios, Mondo Tees, and Wizards of the Coast, among others. And at its heart, her aim is to spark a feeling of awe and wonder with her work. I love that. Welcome. The book, Demon in the Wood, is the must-have graphic novel prequel to the best-selling series and international Netflix sensation, Shadow and Bone, from spectacular new talent Dani and the #1 New York Times bestseller, Leigh Bardugo. Before he led Ravka's Second Army, before he created The Fold, and long before he became the Darkling, he was just a lonely boy burdened by extraordinary power. Eric and his mother, Lena, have spent their lives on the run, but they will never find a safe haven. They are not only Grisha, they are the deadliest and rarest of their kind, feared by those who wish to destroy them and hunted by those who would seek to exploit their gifts. They must hide their true abilities wherever they go, but sometimes deadly secrets have a way of revealing themselves. Here to tell us about how she brought the story to life, Dani Pendergast.
Hey everyone. Great, so kind of take it away with a short reading of the graphic novel presented by Dani and Braden.
Hey. If anything goes wrong, you know what to do.
I know.
Fight. And keep fighting. What's your name?
Huh? Eric.
Keep practicing.
Eric.
There. We could winter with them.
For how long?
Until the thaw.
3 months? 4? All in one place?
The Ool is a powerful squaller, and he's seen combat with these new Fjordan witch hunters. We could stand to learn whatever he has to teach.
All in one place. All right.
All right. I saw the way your face lit. Just remember, the longer we stay, the more careful you'll have to be. Look, the Ool himself has come out to greet us.
You said that word before. What does it mean?
Ool means chieftain. We'll have to work on your Fjordan some more.
I already know Shu and Kirch and on top of Ravkan.
You need to fit in everywhere.
Who are those other men?
They call themselves elders. Old men stroking their beards and congratulating one another on their wisdom.
Just wanted to give you a little context to the story.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with the Grisha verse, it's there's certain people are born with elemental powers and they're treated like witches.
Yep.
And the main character here, Eric, as he's called, is destined to fix that, to find safety for his people. But at what cost?
Yeah.
Was this in Holtz? I think we got the.
Yeah,
the
so
new
you're
one.
just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the project and how you got involved in it.
Okay. So I could first start with, how I joined the project.
Mhm.
So I was working on a couple of things that I hadn't really accepted yet. My agent had shown me a couple of other projects, and I was like, I'm not sure. And then she was like, hold on, Dani, we have this other one that I think you're gonna want to check out. And so I read a little bit about the Grishaverse, and I read the short story, and I absolutely fell in love from the first time I started reading it. It just fit with everything I love about storytelling. Like, I grew up loving Avatar: The Last Airbender and stories like that, and I
Yeah.
feel like this has a lot of similarities with like the magic components. And I like it just really fits when like you as an artist can be partnered with a project that just like it's something that if you saw another artist doing, you would be jealous of them. And that's why I was like, okay, I need to do this.
Yeah.
And so I accepted right away. I read the short story in like an hour or so, and then the next day I went out and I bought the trilogy and I finished it, and I absolutely adored it. So that's how I started, like my introduction to the Grishaverse started. And yeah, after that it was just development, and it just the ball was rolling, and
Yeah.
it just went really quickly, which was nice. But yeah, I felt like I was sort of like thrown into this universe. So I started off with a lot of research of the setting of the story, which was sort of based in medieval Russia. So I looked up a lot of pictures of the taiga forests in the wintertime. I was living in California at the time as well, and I would go hiking at times. I like the scenery. I'm also not only an avid hiker, but there were times when I'd pass by a tree and like, oh, that'd be a perfect tree for the story. And so that helped with the research and just looking up different clothing, medieval
Yes.
Slavic clothing.
Have some of that too.
I literally fell in love with every single picture I saw. It was really tough coming up with the designs for the characters because I loved how intricate the Slavic clothing is. But when you design characters for a graphic novel, you can't get into the details sometimes, especially with reoccurring characters, because just the time constraints with, drawing them.
An embroiderer only has to embroider once, but then when you're the illustrator, you have to draw those embroideries every single time they appear.
It's funny you say that because I was reading my emails right before this from like when I was, communicating with my editor, and I was like, okay, so I love these costumes, but like there's so much embroidery and I literally cannot draw this like 500 times.
Yes.
So I had to admit the beautiful intricate embroidery.
That was one of the things
yeah.
that was so incredible in the show that
Oh,
would always catch
yeah.
my eye.
Yeah.
And it was, it would linger there. They really gave the costume designer their due.
Yeah.
But I love seeing something where your familiarity visually might be with the show, but you're actually tasked with developing how many years before
Like
the
100 or something.
Yeah,
yeah.
However
So-
long it's supposed to be before.
and
Yeah.
and you're in a much more sparse environment, and
Mhm.
and you really feel that. You kind of feel that, and that also goes to the themes here. Like you're longing for civilization. This character, and he's
Yeah.
longing to like be a part of something,
Mhm.
and destined to create this culture. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. So.
So please talk
I think we-
about.
Yeah. So I unfortunately don't have all the pictures of the different variations that I went through with Eric or the Darkling. His design at first, I think they mentioned that he was going to be 13 or 14. And so I initially drew him looking a little bit younger, and they came back with the advice to age him up a bit. After I aged him up, this is the one that I don't have, is I think I ended up making him look very, very wholesome.
Yeah.
Like almost too nice.
Yeah.
And we ended up with this on the far right, and he's sort of a combination of I think they mentioned like Cole Sprouse from Riverdale, Timothy Chalamet, Levi from Attack on Titan. Just, a whole bunch of handsome guys with black hair who have, like, issues.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
and I think I struck the right chord when somebody mentioned 5 from the Umbrella Academy. For some reason,
Okay.
that helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you could really go wherever you wanted with this
Yeah.
young boy
Yeah.
design. Yeah.
Because I asked my editor, I was like, do they want me to go in the direction where I reference like Ben Barnes? And they were very adamant that I didn't have to look at any of the previous artwork or the show for reference. I could sort of like create my own universe, which was really nice. As an artist, like I can sort of just do what I want with it, but I
Yeah.
just felt very trusted throughout the entire experience.
That's really great to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not always the case. A lot of times they'll be like, no, it's got to look exactly like it appears in
Yeah.
this show and this toy and that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, Leigh
Yeah.
was so trusting, which also made me feel like worried. I was like, "Are you sure? Like, I
Yeah.
could change him or
There's a lot of
like." She's like, "No,
responsibility
it's
at that
perfect.
point.
It's perfect."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay."
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
See what
that's
else we have here too with the development.
yeah. And another thing that I started with right away after researching is the color design. I color for me is huge in my work. I love exploring color. It's also really hard for me for some reason. I feel like I have a good eye for it, but to find the right palette is really tough.
Okay.
And so right off the bat, I was playing around with different colors, and they really seemed to like the direction I would go with it. I also let them know that I would do a lot of line work, but a lot of the storytelling would be told through color.
Absolutely.
And I felt like I needed to let them know up front. As we go into like the thumbnails and the sketches, you'll notice that they're very rough. So
well, we've got a whole section later on where we'll go into the like
Yeah.
the color story
Just like-
and the symbolism and everything of it, because that's one thing that Shelli and I really liked in this book is your treatment of color throughout.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And right here too, with your development art, you're sort of able to capture winter colors, without just being, everything is somber.
Yeah.
There's no sky. There's no nothing. It's white on white on white.
There's a lot of
So,
vibrant
yeah.
colors.
It's interesting because snow is not like that at all. Snow is so
Oh, yeah.
many different colors. Snow is like, if in the wintertime, look down at the snow, it is blue. It's so blue and it's really beautiful. So it was fun to play with that.
I always
But-
think of the nighttime snow where it's too bright.
Yeah.
It's too bright out. And I'm like, how is this happening? I can see absolutely everything and just love capturing that color. Is maybe this is a question for later too, but like did you look at any besides the actual photos, like did you look at any paintings of I think of so many like bucolic winter scenes and stuff.
Oh, like other artists' treatment of winter scenes.
I don't know if I looked directly at other artists' treatment of winter scenes, although I did look at a lot of Game of Thrones shots and stills and just seeing like how like trees would emerge from the snow and stuff.
wow,
That
yeah.
really helped
Yeah.
with that, yeah.
Great. Let's get a little bit further in here. So we wanted to talk a little about the process.
Yeah, we wanted to this was a pair of pages that you provided us with, like the full process of it, and here we're seeing the end product. So let's take it all the way back to the beginning, to the script, just the words. And we were actually wondering, so did Leigh write the comic script for it, or did somebody adapt it from the short story?
It was adapted from the short story.
Yeah. Okay.
And I actually got 50 pages at first of it, and I got to draw all the way through those, and then I had to wait for the next bit. But the script was given to me like this. It was sort of broken down, almost like a play, which was really, really nice. I was given the liberty to do what I wanted with it, as long as I kept the dialogue relatively the same. But I could break it down, or like if I wanted to break panel 4 into like 7 different panels, if it looked okay, they would have let me do it. That felt fantastic as an artist. And so, I would read over a scene or two or however many I felt like at the moment. And then I would quickly, just as I was reading, or I would sketch it out just really quickly. Like if something came to me, I would just like jot it down on a piece of paper. It was super messy. It kind of looked like how it did on the right. It's not pretty. It's not great. But like I can read it. I can read it. Like that's clearly like a scary man at the bottom right. But like, you know.
But with noodles.
Yeah, with noodle arms.
Oh yeah, we've got tons of noodle arms.
Yeah.
Nails. This is standard.
So
Yeah.
about how long does it take to produce just that drawing, that thumbnail, as we call it?
I mean, the drawing bit, not that long, but I would rearrange it over and over and over again until like the way it was, the panels were right. Like the drawing does not take a long time, but figuring out the flow and how the reader would go through the page takes a little bit longer. And because of the time constraints of the book, I also did the thumbnails with the sketches.
Do you thumbnail with practical media or digital?
Oh, digital. I did everything in Photoshop, except for the final art, but yeah.
'Cause
This
it's
whole
so much
process,
easier
yeah.
to move things around, resize
Yeah.
things digitally.
Yup.
And just erase and
Mhm.
try something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Go back to something you erased. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was the more refined sketch that I would take it to, and this is what they would end up, Leigh and my editor would end up seeing. They wouldn't see the first one, because they would have been like, Dani, what is this? Although there are some pages that did look a little bit like that. But yeah, this is what it would end up being. At this stage, I would take a lot of reference photos of myself. I found that I had a little bit more time with the sketching process, so I wanted to give myself ample time for inking. So I would do a lot of really tight referenced drawings now, so I could just trace over my sketches. So a lot of these hands are my hands. Especially,
There was a page a little while ago that
Oh, yes.
that had some photos of yourself.
oh God, yeah.
Yeah. This is part of the process.
It's part of the artist process.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was in the forest is one of the hikes I was talking about. So I bought one of those like tripods with the like automatic like clicker, and I would take like literally every single photo you see someone like doing something is me. Dead Annika, that's me. Like I posed myself on the ground. I made my boyfriend take some pictures with me too. We were just like posing. Every time you see a hand, like I had to make, my hands are really jangly and gross, so I would have to like make them look more like refined. Cause
But
yeah.
I love that. That's actually that a lot of artists say that. They're
Yeah.
like, every hand is my hand.
Every hand in that
Yeah.
book is my hand, and I love drawing hands,
Just
and so like
wider knuckles.
Yep,
or
yep.
Something like
Mhm.
that.
yeah.
And that is such a big part. I mean, you know, we're gonna stay on hands for a little bit because that's the source of power and magic. And
That's
Yeah.
how
getting
they're
this-
able to
this
evoke the
process,
elements
yeah.
in those.
Yeah.
And so lovely that it's given so much attention paid to it. I actually really want to toggle too between, just so you guys can see the thumbnail
Where it
versus
starts.
those type pencils.
Mhm.
And so, what are we on to here?
That's inks. The inks I did on my iPad. I switched to the app Procreate, which I adore. I like exclusively use Procreate for my final work. I love just sitting on my couch and putting on a TV show and just drawing. I have such a hard time sitting at the desk. So that's how I did the whole book. I bought a kitchen timer. And I would set a timer for a certain amount of time because I can also get lost in details.
Okay.
And so I would set a timer and I'd work on each panel, and as the time went off, I would move.
Okay.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Very
Because
smart.
I found, like, in the beginning, I would spend way too long on each page, and 200 pages can really add up after a while. When you see your deadline coming, you're like, oh my God, I need to speed up. So, yeah.
It's about getting to the essentials and
Yep.
and Yeah, because a reader is gonna breeze through this page in no time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was horrible, and I saved a lot of like the really like impressive pages for the end, and so
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, why did I do this? But
Kind of random
Yeah.
question, but like, is there something that is sort of hidden in your work where you say, I never actually spend a lot of time on that, but I do put all my energy into X?
This other thing.
Yeah. Like in order to, like, I'm fooling you, the reader, like into thinking that it's all fully detailed and, you know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I just put so much detail in
Into
everything.
everything, yeah.
Like that's me. Like I love detail so much. I just put so much detail in everything, and I feel like I could get away with that a little bit more if I shaded.
Okay. That's really
But I
interesting.
think like with my line work, like I have to put the detail there because it's just so thin that if it's not there, it.
But I'm seeing
Yeah,
such volume, like, in these,
Oh,
The
it's the black
fabric.
filling.
yes.
Yeah, the black filling.
That's
Like,
what it is.
if I look at my work, I'm like, something's off. I just add a lot of black. I'm like, there we go.
Mhm.
Yep.
It looks like I drew a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Right.
the Mike
We've
Mignola
practiced.
technique.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you put in just the right amount of detail on like fabric folds, just enough to establish volume.
That's
Yeah.
an incredible technique, yeah, and skill, absolutely. And I think that just this ethereal wispiness of all the I don't know what you could call them, these cloud like and you know the treatment of the shadow just seems so like just pours out of you, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I-
yeah.
That's my favorite part to
All
draw.
right, great. So,
Would
about
we?
the adaption component, which
Oh, I
we
guess we already saw that. Oh, do you want to go back and see the final color?
Oh.
I forgot to put in the
Oh
final
my
color
gosh.
at the end.
Oh. Let's go back.
Oh,
There we
there
are.
it is.
Please talk about the color process.
Oh, okay. So the coloring process, I would go and I would start with each scene and I would color one page in a scene and try to figure out what I wanted this scene to communicate, and what the colors and how the colors would help portray that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if this page is a great example because this is sort of the prologue or the explanation, and so it's not really trying to convey anything other than like this is separate from the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also like
That's
these
a
people are
Perfectly important
feared.
thing to need to communicate.
Yeah, that's true. Because we do a lot of flashbacks, and so I had to make sure like those color palettes were like extremely different. I think when Lena and Eric are talking over the tea, and they think back to when Eric was trying to use his powers, and he was unable to do that.
That's all in like yellows and greens, and
Yeah.
that's kind of the only time those colors appear in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would start by create or illustrate or coloring one page from a scene, figure the colors out, add all those colors into a little like folder thing
Yep.
in Procreate, and just use that to color. And it would also help maintain like a, consistency throughout that one scene to make sure that like, oh, her shirt's not the wrong color, because like that happens.
Because there's only this many colors, and so
Yeah.
it's got to be one of those.
And it keeps
Yeah.
it cohesive, which
And
is
maybe
really
keeping
nice.
your time
Yeah.
table, like you were talking about, that efficiency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, the coloring is so strong. I can't wait to talk about it. So if we go back to adaption,
Yeah.
Now you said this. You said that I think these were some pages where you went through a lot of revisions
Yeah.
and making different choices in how you wanted to tell the story through comics.
Yeah, so for the most part, Leigh loved most of the stuff I did. There were very few notes, because I did get a lot of notes back, like tweak this, let's change this here, let's fix this expression. There was actually one element, so the page where Eric like cuts everybody in half, and like the super gory page, I think I wrote to her, I was like, I don't know how dark I should make this, like how much detail should I put? I don't want to scar the readers. And
Do
she
you wanna
wrote
see
wrote
aortas,
back,
or-
scar them.
Yeah.
I was like, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm also really squeamish, and so I made somebody else like look at pictures of that and like describe it to me, and then I would sketch it out and I'd show them. I'm like, does this look right?
wow.
And then he'd be like, no, you gotta fix that over here. I was like, okay.
Wow, very detailed.
So I would get feedback. So this is one of the pages that I got a lot of feedback on, and it was mostly for his body language and expression. They thought he looked Eric looked very disheveled here, which is fair. He does.
Yeah.
And we went through a lot of passes. So then they were like, maybe in this moment he's embodying his mom a little bit more, like that's coming through. And so we tried that, and this was my interpretation of it. It's also me. Like I said, I'm posing for all of these.
Because this is a point towards the end of the story where he's just taken a step that he thought he might not have to do, or that like he's kind of forced into it, into killing somebody to preserve himself, like to save himself. And yeah, I can see how that could also how you could interpret that as like he's off balance. He's like not sure who he is now, but it looks like it's moving more toward like he's more resolved now.
Yeah, he's also finally able to do the thing that he was never able to do, that his mom would constantly berate him for not being able to do.
I always felt like too, it's like a beating out of his identity, and that, that loss of innocence, because up till this point, this was people who were his age, who he trusted and kind of wanted to see himself like kind of living a normal life, and yet this necessity creeps in.
Yep.
So I think this is the one you landed on.
So
right?
this is the one I landed on. They were like, that's it. And,
Okay.
this also, another note is when you do comics, you have to be like almost an actor in a way. Like I had to learn, like I had to come up with different mannerisms and body languages for certain characters.
Yeah.
And for the Ool, for example, the big like red-headed man, I had like the way when I was posing for him, I was like, okay, I look too much like Dani. Like how do I look like the Ool? Or how do I look like Lev? Or how does Eric move? How does Annika move? So figuring out who these characters are was really fun for me.
That's great. Oh,
Yeah, well, one does wear a lot of hats as a cartoonist.
there we are, into the colors. There's those hands again.
Yep, my hands.
Yeah, we wanted to talk real briefly about the theme of the darkness in here that you treat it a couple different ways. One is one on the right, practically, that's like his elemental power. He's able to summon darkness, but then also it's used to at certain times to represent sort of his inner life, like his thoughts and emotions, and even to some extent, like in the bottom panel on the left there. It seems to be kind of a blending of the two, of like what he's thinking about and his the practical powers that he's thinking about, these animals, the what are they called?
Amplifiers.
Amplifiers.
Yes,
So is it a catalyst or no?
Yeah, so I really liked working with the shadows for two reasons. One was a very practical reason, was that I could use it as a design element to lead the viewer's eye through the page.
Yes.
And it's an organic shape. I could kind of create whatever it looked like, and so it was very easy to get that like nice diagonal.
Yeah.
So that was fun to play with. But then I think it worked really well as for a theme, was that shadows are usually used to obscure things or hide things, and to put his thoughts in that was really nice to show his innermost feelings. And in the trilogy, he communicates with Alina in that way too, through his shadows, and they also come to life. So
Yeah.
with the animals coming out, it
Yeah.
kind of like ties in with that as well.
Yeah. It's just such a strong visual metaphor that we just are so fascinated by. And
it's-
just,
even a little, I guess, I just realized, like a little foreshadowing, or try to make a pun, but like foreshadowing of the life of its own that it takes on, or that it will later when he creates this big cataclysm.
Feminism's evil.
Yeah.
and as you said, like it serves a function of adapting this to comics. This is something that only exists like in this medium, so that's like always, that's exciting to me.
Oh, by the way, I'm never sorry to make a pun.
Yeah, take it back. Yeah. So we'll move on here. So
Yes.
color.
Yeah. yeah, like you were saying, that like each scene has a specific color palette. Like the like a large portion of the book is in very cool like blues and purples, and then there's certain points like the like when they go into this city near the encampment, where everything's just pleasant and warm and yellow gold, and these two outsiders they are practically hiding in the shadows. Like there's actual shadows going on, but it helps that it's all the warmth and color is also drained when they're hiding there.
So it's just we just were fascinated by this as a visual storytelling device. It was so clear when we're moving scenes, you know, because that shift, that evolution of the color story, and also the fact that it just really solidified too, like that we're on a journey here.
Right.
You know, like I thought that was so lovely.
Yeah, I deliberately made a lot of the scenes cool so that Annika and Sylvie would stand out. I wanted them to be bold and red, and for them to really be the only bold red things until blood. I wanted the blood to stand out. Yeah. Yes. Fascinated by blood. Yeah.
Well, and this scene as well, where sorry. I thought we had more.
Oh, we had one. There's a great one in the beginning with just the darkness that I love.
Oh.
But anyway.
Okay. Yeah, and then just this scene of like danger and peril is like a really alarming red throughout the background.
Yeah,
It's-
and obviously
which is-
contrast.
Anyway, yeah.
All those cool colors that we saw before. So we wanted to hear a little bit about your inspiration, of course, like
Yeah.
other artists, and then for your work, and then also specifically for this.
Yeah. So I get inspiration from literally everywhere. Like I don't discriminate when it comes to inspiration. I have like folders upon folders upon folders of like everything from like rugs that I see. I'm like, I like those colors on those rugs.
Yep.
To like other
collector.
Yeah. To other comic artists, to TV shows, to literally everything. And it was really hard to narrow down because like I could literally talk for just hours of different artists and TV shows I like that I like made their way somehow, even just subconsciously, into this book.
So
But
what do we have here? Like,
that's Daisuke Igarashi's work from Children of the Sea. I really love.
oh my god, what a beautiful graphic.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gorgeous. I love it so much. I really liked how they conveyed so much with little dialogue, and that's something that I wanted to translate into the book because when I got the script, almost every single panel did have dialogue in it, and I wanted to give the action some room to breathe and to just convey a lot in like the small moments. And so looking at that work was really helpful.
Yeah, like writing, especially when it comes to comics, doesn't have to be actual words printed on the page. It
Yeah.
can be the time you take to stay in a moment and be silent, like the negative space.
Yeah.
We
just
also
the
thought that there was a
pose, yeah.
lot of beats too, where you paused the dialogue, didn't have a balloon, and I thought that was really important to show like the angst of the teenager.
Yep.
And a lot of times he's talking with his mother, and just one panel of him blinking, and then we're going back, just focusing on his face. But anyway,
And then this is Mobius's work, the French illustrator, and it is gorgeous. And I love the thin lines with the color treatment because I adore really like complex color, like the shading, and I just can't do that. You can't do that with a graphic novel with a certain amount of time. And so looking at this and referencing that was a really great way to see like someone can do it with just like simple color.
Yeah, some of those colors are pretty much flat. There's just a little bit of like gradient shading on that face, but the rest of it is just the right colors, and all the storytelling and volume is told just through the line.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then in my other work, or not other work, but just, illustrated work, I'm really inspired by James Jean. James Jean is an incredible artist. His stuff is so good. His use of color, just the figures, they're so expressive. And then Yuko Shimizu, her line work is fantastic as well. I guess our work, the way I've met her before and I've seen her process, and the way we work is very similar. I just work entirely digitally, whereas she works traditionally and then colors digitally.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to see how there are similarities there and some differences. But those are two artists that I admire a lot. And
You were
another.
saying other media.
Yeah, other media. I grew up loving watching all of Studio Ghibli's movies. I would watch. I actually downloaded so many screen caps from the movies to reference for some of the panels. It was very helpful in that sense. And because there are so many similarities between movies and shows and just film and comics, just seeing how things are like set up.
Yep.
So referencing Studio Ghibli was really helpful, and it's beautiful, and just like the quietness of some scenes, like that's something I wanted to emulate in the book. And of course, Wes Anderson is amazing. I am really inspired by his use of color throughout his films, and I am so drawn to central compositions. That was like one of the challenges making this graphic novel, is that I wanted to put everything in the center.
Okay.
I always, that's like my first instinct. I'm like, no, some things have to be on this side, some things have to be on that side. And so I just always gravitate towards his films because they're just so gorgeous.
Yeah, in illustration, it's good to have things like very well, usually it's good to have things kind of balanced because you're supposed to look at just that image for a long time. But on a comic page, it needs to kind of propel through the to the next thing, across the page, down to the next. Yeah.
And then you have to suddenly get that nice centered image to say, no, stop at this one, please.
Yeah.
So that this is more, we're having a moment here.
It would also hurt when I had something centered in my sketches, and I'm like, I know it would work better to the right, and then I would like move it over. I'm like, oh. But I would do it.
Those perfectly rendered hands just clawing through the pages are being dragged.
Yeah.
So these are.
These are my other works. I guess this is what they saw. Everything except for the one in the middle is the stuff that Leigh and her editor sent to me, and they were like, "Oh, this is the stuff we like.
Right.
We could see this being translated into Eric's story in the Grishaverse," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I see it."
Mm-hmm. That's always so helpful. It's like, what did you see about my work that you want to see replicated? That's lovely.
And it was also really interesting too, because this scene that they said, "Oh, we think you would do this scene well," was the scene that when I read it, I was like, "Oh, this is the scene that I want to do this for," which was the scene where Annika's freezing over the ice and they're fighting for their lives.
Yeah. Actually, you told us a little bit about that, like that you worked in order.
Yeah.
And you were just kind of barreling towards that scene.
Yeah.
Right? You had that in your mind.
Yeah. Working in order was really helpful because it forced me to get through. Not that like there were some pages that I didn't want to do, but the ones where not much was happening and when it was just dialogue, sometimes those are a little tough. Like you want to get to those like fun pages, the challenging pages, the action sequences, and so working in order really helped with that. It also helped with like page turners and stuff because I could work on one, go to the next, and then go back and be like, oh, how can I, change something here to, that would affect the next page.
To anticipate the next thing, yeah.
That's great.
And I think these were some comic covers that you
Yeah.
got for Boom.
Except for the dragon, that was an interior image for the Shang-Chi record.
Okay.
Yeah, but everything else is a comic book cover. And then those are Magic the Gathering cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the life of a illustrator is very piecemeal. You do kind of whatever the next thing requires.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, these are some gorgeous Magic the Gathering collectible trading card game illustrations.
Yeah. We'd love to, I don't know, is that all we have? Should we open it up for some Q&A?
Yeah, if I think of any others, I'll add mine to the questions.
Yeah.
But let's
All right.
ask you folks. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sophie.
Hi.
I was wondering if you could walk me through your schedule for making the graphic novel. Like, how long did it take for like thumbs, pencils, inks, and how did you stay on track for meeting deadlines?
Okay. Oh, that's actually a great question. Because I have ADHD, like really bad ADHD, and so the whole time was like in panic mode. I was like, oh my god, how am I gonna do this? And so I started, I think, last year in September with character designs. I think I started last year in September, and we were just like kind of going back and forth with ideas and stuff. I had a little bit of time to work on my sketches, so I started in November when I got my script, and I worked until I think March or April for the sketches and pencils that I did at the same time. And then in May, and so I had a little bit of time for revisions because like you gotta allot that. And then I worked on inks from May until August. Yeah, August. May until August, which isn't a lot of time. I was like taking my time in the beginning. I was like, all right, I'm gonna do like one page every 2 days, and like I like neglected the math because like I'm terrible at math. So I like did not do the math, and I was like, oh my god, I need to like hurry up. So after that, then I waited for feedback to get revisions, and then I had until December-ish to do color. So it was very, very quick, but yeah, I managed to stay on track by just sheer panic.
Awesome. Yeah.
And you've done some like some other comic projects that were like shorter
Yeah.
shorter scale. So you're able to know like, well, okay, I know it takes me about this much time
Yeah.
to do this many pages in pencils and this many in inks.
Yeah.
So you're able to kind of extrapolate that to well, although I assume this is your longest comics project,
Oh, yeah.
that you're able to sort of hazard a guess at like, so it should take this amount of time, but also to add in some extra time to like, but just in case it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. You
have-
got
have-
to
have some-
add that
have some
buffer
wiggle room, yeah.
because it always took a little bit longer than you would
Yep.
think.
Yeah, somebody who is like Carrie Peach, I think, says.
Yeah, Carrie Peach has a great like
Rule
if
of
you're
thumb, kind of.
interested, like
She has a
there's
schedule calculator.
yes,
Is
that
what you're saying?
schedule thing is
Yeah.
lovely.
I
Yeah.
think I saw that. I think I used that at one point. Yeah.
Spreadsheet.
And she
Yeah.
says always schedule based on your worst time,
Yeah.
like
Mm.
your worst like comic schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I did not do that. I was
not
very
your
hopeful.
not your ideal.
Yeah.
It's very funny how you wake up every day and you're like, I can definitely do what I did yesterday. And it's like, but wait a minute, I'm coming off of yesterday in which I
Mhm.
did a bunch.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm tired. Yeah. Yeah. Scott, anyone else?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you have a favorite page?
I do have a favorite page. I don't remember the page number, but so it's the page where well, it's the 2 pages, the spread where Annika is walking up to Eric with the rock, and he is realizing what the heck is going on. So
Mhm.
it's this one. I really like the tone change, and this is one of the pages that, like, as an artist, sometimes it takes you a really long time to sort something out and to visualize what that might look like. For this page specifically, I knew instantly what I wanted this to look like. Like I don't even think I did a thumbnail for this. I think I just drew it and I was like, this is it. This is what I want it to look like. But this is my favorite part.
Yeah, that turn came out so perfectly that like, oh, it's a like maybe it's kind of sexy fun time at the hot springs.
Yeah.
What's she doing?
Sure.
Uh-oh, something's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
I kind of wanted to know too about it's along the same lines, but and maybe you have an answer.
Mhm.
I know we talked like earlier about it, but when you're reading it for that first time
Mhm.
and you picture something in your head and I don't know, just like an anecdote about something that changed, or as you said, this one remained the same, but something that evolved from that movie that plays in your head versus, hey, wait, that maybe won't
Like at
work
the
in
very
comics
beginning.
at all. Yeah, like when you're just
Compared
reading a
to-
short story.
Compared to what's printed on paper here.
Even if it's a motif or something, it doesn't even have to be a page.
I think
Yeah.
it was the characters' personalities for
Oh, wow.
me, and like
Mhm.
figuring out who they are and kind of falling in love with all of them.
Mhm.
Because in the short story and this book are different. There are added scenes to this, and it expands upon some of the characters a little bit. And so while I was working on the story, I began to understand each character, and like literally everyone in this book is just doing their best.
Mhm.
They're not like bad. There are bad people, but like they're just trying to survive in a world that wants to kill them.
Mhm.
And to show like their humanity in those moments was really important to me. Sylvie and Annika are just like really dear to my heart, even though like Annika tries to do that. Like Eric is also, or like the Darkling, they're all dear to me, and so it was really interesting seeing how like at first I was like, oh, this is an interesting story of like the villain's origin story from the short story, and then to making this and sort of exploring like each character's like why are they doing the thing they're doing.
Yep.
That's something that like I don't know grew on me as I started
Yeah.
working on this.
And making them real.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of building off of Sophie's question.
Yeah.
About just kind of scheduling and keeping on track of things. You mentioned that you have ADHD.
Mhm.
And did you ever have to deal with like paralysis or like type like executive dysfunction where you just cannot get something done no matter how much you want to? And like if you did, do you have like any advice for other illustrators who like also go through the same thing?
Yeah. So I'm actually struggling with that right now. Like preparing. So the scariest part of like this whole project was like knowing how big Leigh's world is and preparing for like all the talks I'll have to do. And so I've just been playing Animal Crossing and The Sims like 24/7 and like it's been so hard. And so while I was working on the project, because it was asking so much of me, I just physically could not, like my anxiety just would not let me procrastinate because like I just couldn't. If I did, like you're gonna be so behind. But what allowed me to just work was working a lot beforehand. So I was working like around the clock all the time, drawing a lot. And the more you draw and the more you build yourself a schedule, as hard as that is, like it's really hard. It will help. If the more you draw, the more you come up with a process, the easier it becomes. I haven't really drawn in a month or so, and trying to get back into it is tough. And so the more you keep at it and the more you kind of force yourself to, the easier it will be. Other pieces of advice I can give are if there's something you prefer doing, do that. So like I mentioned, I prefer drawing with Procreate on an iPad on my couch while I watch Steven Universe. Do that. Some people have recommended for me to like sit at my desk with a Cintiq and draw in Photoshop, and it's really hard for me to do that. Like I can't focus. So just do what works for you, and it will help.
Thank you.
Like
And you-
getting to the desk too is
Yeah.
another thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I tend to do that with myself. Just say like, okay, like you don't want to today, but spend 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're there
Yeah.
for the rest of the
Another
day.
piece of advice I think Yuko Shimizu said is if you're doing a piece of work or if you have a project that you need to start, do a little bit today.
Yep.
Like even if you just make one line on the piece of paper, because the next day it'll be easier to start when you just have something to work off of.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your cover process?
Yes, I would love to. So the cover process was really fun. This was the last thing I did after everything was completely finished. I got an email from an editor or art director saying like, we're gonna work on the cover now. I was like, yes, this is the fun part. And also really hard because this is one drawing, but I did like so many before we got to this composition. I think because he mentioned to me, he's like, Dani, just like sketch out something that just looks like busted. So it looked like my thumbnail. Like that's what I sent in. I sent in what looked like my thumbnails, and I sent in I think like 40 of them, 30 or 40. It was a lot. And so then they picked their favorite, I think 6 or 7. And I took each of those to a more refined sketch. And after they reviewed those, they approved 2, and I think I refined those 2 a little bit more, and they ended up picking this one. And what is unusual about this cover, I guess, in terms of other covers I've done, is that they said do whatever you want with the colors, which is sort of what they said the entire time, is like, Dani, we trust you, do whatever you want to do, which is amazing. But also I was like, ah, oh my god, okay. So yeah, I drew this, and it was my idea to like hide the little amplifiers down there, which was really fun. And then after I did that, then they gave me the okay to add the rest of the animals on like throughout the back cover and the sleeves and stuff like that. So that was really fun.
Was that your favorite cover personally, or did you like another one?
I don't know. Yeah, I think I did like this one just because like I knew this was one of the compositions I was really confident about, that like I would be able to execute it. Like there's some compositions that I liked but would have taken a little bit more time to get right, like the body language and stuff like that. So this one just felt I did like this one a lot. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
I don't think I caught the answer. You said that someone else wrote the script for
Yeah.
but it wasn't Leigh, it was somebody, I guess, that you worked with.
Yeah, so it was somebody, I cannot remember their name right now. I wish I did. I'm so sorry. They helped adapt the script, and I'm pretty sure it's on the website if you look, or it's on Goodreads, so you can
Okay.
check it out there. But yeah, the script was adapted.
Yeah, I just didn't see the credit in the
Oh.
by flipping too quickly.
Yeah.
But I was just curious about that process. But that,
Yeah, I don't really know like what their back and forth look like, but I just saw the finished product.
That was mostly so they could add those extra components, like you think, and also just
Yeah.
pace it so that this is
Yeah,
this
I
will
think
fit
just
into this
break
page
it down.
count.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's kind of a variety of ways that comic scripts can look. Sometimes they're very set and like this is this page, this many panels, and don't change it
Yeah.
because I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm the writer. This seems to be somewhere in the middle, and then there are other comic scripts that are really just kind of screenplays.
Mm.
That's just like this is the start of this scene. These people are in it. This is the dialogue. This thing happens here. The next thing happens there, and then that's the end of the scene. And it's up to you, the cartoonist, to break that down into pages and panels. And that's also an interesting way to work on a graphic novel. Although I wouldn't work on it like for a monthly comic.
Yeah, it was really nice to work this way because
Yeah.
I felt like I had some sort of structure I could base off of, but then I could like branch out if I wanted to.
Yeah.
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 And
So
your
it was
schedule
really
seems
helpful.
so intense that it's
Yeah.
like you need that expectation of page count and
Mhm.
everything. So that's lovely. I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds like a perfect working relationship that you have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I finished, I was genuinely like so sad because I was like, this is the best project I've ever worked on, and I want so badly to work on another one like this.
So
Cause
so the
Yeah.
question would be: is there more? Like, are you
I
gonna revisit?
hope. There's nothing right now, but I know. I hope.
If this one sells well,
Yeah.
everybody tell your friends.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, great. So please watch as Dani skyrockets into all kinds of universes besides this one.
Mhm.
And thanks for coming. And if you're interested in comics and graphic novels, the Massachusetts Independent Comic Expo, also known as MICE, is October 22nd and 23rd at Boston University. And we'll have many artists, authors, and workshops and talks for you to join other people who are local. So,
And if you like this kind of talk, there's a really excellent particular panel called Visual Literacy that is all about a panel of cartoonists going in, examining one of their pages that they like, and also a page of somebody else's art that they like, and talking about the way the comic is constructed.
Dani, where can people find you? Like, active on posting your art.
I post on Instagram at DC Pender, also Twitter at Dani Pendergast, and I have a website that I don't post on, but it links to all my socials at DaniPendergast.com.
Thanks. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank
Thank you.
you.